everyone, I am Chris Swearingin, and this is Computer Magazine. This is the digital mashup for Sunday, August 20th, 2017. We have a lot that's going on in the digital world to talk about today. We also have the question of the day, the picture of the day, and the video of the day, and a lot more, so stay tuned. That's good, hon. Could you put my tires back on my car now? Well, today on Computer Magazine, an 18-year-old digital currency millionaire thinks Bitcoin could hit $10,000 a coin. GE CEO Jeffrey Immelt reportedly tops the list to replace Travis Kalanick as Uber CEO. Google needs to pay Apple a small fortune to remain the default search engine on iOS, and you won't believe how much they pay per year just to be in that position. Elon Musk and 115 other experts asked the UN to ban killer robots in open letter. Well, we've got a solar eclipse tomorrow. Jerry Lewis unfortunately died today. We've still got the question of the day, the picture of the day, the video of the day, and we're going to look around the new computermagazine.com, and we've got a lot more coming up. Well, for the first story, I am going to talk about an 18-year-old that thinks Bitcoin could hit $10,000 per coin here soon, and he's a millionaire investor in Bitcoin. But I want to back up for a minute for those of you who don't know what Bitcoin is. Now, if you do, you'll want to skip ahead to the part where I talk about the article on Computer Magazine. But for those who don't, I want to kind of go over a brief overview of what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is a digital currency, and it is based purely in mathematics. It's more akin to the stock market in that except it has no real value. It's not based on stock ownership in a company or any commodity or tied to anything real. It is purely a mathematical algorithm that's distributed across the internet, across computers, and it's held in a register, and it's purely virtual, purely based on cryptography and mathematics. But it has become a big thing over the past few years because of the blockchain technology. Now, we'll get into all of that and explain it a little more here. But you may have heard about this if you're somewhat into technology or not. If you're a technologist, then certainly you know about it already, and that's why I say skip ahead some. But for those who don't, I want to go back to an article on the Washington Post from 4 years ago, and it gives a brief overview of what Bitcoin is. And so I'm going to read that, and then we'll skip forward to the article in question. So, 12 questions about Bitcoin you were too embarrassed to ask. This has been a big week for Bitcoin. On Monday, the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs held the first ever congressional hearing on Bitcoin. Later in the day, the currency's value reached an all-time high of more than $800. Well, it's over 4,000 right now as we speak. So 4 years ago, 800, and there's times in which you could have picked it up at a bargain. But let's continue on. This has left a lot of people scratching their heads. What is Bitcoin? How do you use it? And why would anyone want to? Read on for answers. What's Bitcoin? Bitcoin is an online financial network that people use to send payments from one person to another. In many ways, Bitcoin is similar to conventional payment networks like Visa credit cards or PayPal. But Bitcoin is different from those and other payment networks in two important ways. First, Bitcoin is decentralized. For-profit companies own the Visa and PayPal networks and manage them for the benefit of their respective shareholders. No one owns or controls the Bitcoin network. It has a peer-to-peer structure with hundreds of computers all over the internet working together to process Bitcoin transactions. Bitcoin's decentralized architecture means that it is the world's first completely open financial network. To create a new financial service in the conventional U.S. banking system, you need to partner with an existing bank and comply with a variety of complex rules. The Bitcoin network has no such restrictions. People don't need anyone's permission or assistance to create new Bitcoin-based financial services. The second thing that makes the Bitcoin unique is that it comes with its own currency. PayPal and Visa conduct transactions in conventional currencies such as the US dollars. The Bitcoin network, however, conducts transactions in a new monetary unit, also called the Bitcoin. Number 2. That seems really weird. What would anyone use a payment network based on imaginary currency? It is weird. Almost everyone who encounters the idea for the first time, including me, has the same reaction. That can't possibly work, but so far the market has proved the skeptics wrong. This graph shows the price of one Bitcoin since the start of 2011 when the currency began to adopt mainstream attention. The price has been extraordinarily volatile. It lost more than 90% of its value between June and October 2011, for example. But there's also been an unmistakable upward trend. Notice that the chart is a logarithmic scale. It shows the currency's value rising from around 30 cents at the start of 2011 to around 600 today. There are almost 12 million Bitcoins in existence, so the Bitcoin money supply is now worth around 7 billion. Well, you could pick it up for 30 cents. And now they're over 4,000. Imagine that investment. Bitcoin has captured the imagination of venture capitalists. A startup called BitPay, which processes Bitcoin payments on behalf of vendors, raised more than $2 million earlier this year. Coinbase, a startup that helps consumers buy and sell Bitcoins, has raised $5 million. And last month, a Bitcoin startup called Circle raised $9 million. Why are people so excited? Bitcoin enthusiasts believe that Bitcoin's peer-to-peer architecture and low barriers to entry will allow the creation of a new generation of innovative financial services, in much the same way that the internet's open architecture led to innovative new online services. There are also many Bitcoin fans who see the currency as an antidote to the inflationary tendencies of central banks, though as we'll see later, this argument for Bitcoin is misguided. Number 3, this just sounds like a bubble. Do people use the currency for anything besides speculation? I just mentioned BitPay. It provides a good sign of Bitcoin's growing popularity for real transactions. In September 2012, the company announced that it had signed up 1,000 merchants to use its service for accepting Bitcoin payments. Just a year later, the company said it passed 10,000 merchants. BitPay works with a wide variety of merchants. Some sell online services like web hosting or virtual private networks. Others sell jewelry and electronics. There are even restaurants and cupcake shops that sell their wares for Bitcoins. And yes, Bitcoin has significant illicit uses. Programs like Satoshi Dice allow people to gamble online. Until recently, a website called Silk Road helped dealers sell millions of dollars of illicit drugs. That's on the dark web when we've discussed the Silk Road before it was shut down, but there's still a lot of dark things going on that Bitcoin is used for out there, as we'll discuss more. It's hardly unusual for new payment technologies to attract illicit use. Pornography was a big draw for both the first VCRs and early consumer internet. New payment technologies often attract criminals looking for new ways to move their funds without government scrutiny. Another application for Bitcoins that is expected to become more important in the future is international payments. Right now, wiring money internationally involves slow, expensive, inconvenient services like Western Union. Bitcoin is international, and its fees can be much lower than conventional wire transfers. There's still work to be done to make such a system affordable and user-friendly, but it has potential to disrupt the international payment industry. Number 4, who created Bitcoin? No one knows for sure. The currency was created by a person who identified himself as Satoshi Nakamoto. While the name sounds Japanese, Bitcoin's creators never provided any personal details. He collaborated with other early Bitcoin fans through online forums, but never met with other members of the Bitcoin community face to face. Then, starting in 2010, he gradually reduced his involvement in the currency's development. His last known communication came in 2011. We don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but we do know that if he ever surfaces, he will be an extremely wealthy man. Millions of bitcoins were created in the currency's first 2 years, and Satoshi likely owns hundreds of thousands of them. At today's prices, he would be a multi-millionaire many times over. Yeah, I'm guessing a billionaire. We'll have to check on that. Before leaving the scene, Nakamoto passed his torch to a mild-mannered developer named Gavin Andreessen, who is currently the project's lead developer. Andreessen now works under the auspices of the Bitcoin Foundation, the closest thing the anarchic Bitcoin community has to an official public face. Where do Bitcoins come from? Number 5. In a conventional financial system, new money is created by a central bank, such as the Federal Reserve, but the Bitcoin network doesn't have a central bank. So the system needed an alternative mechanism for introducing currency into circulation. Bitcoin's designer solved this problem in a clever way. As I said above, hundreds of computers scattered across the internet work together to process Bitcoin transactions. These computers are called miners, and Bitcoin's transaction clearing process is called mining. It's called that because every 10 minutes on average, a Bitcoin miner wins a computational race and gets a prize. Currently, that reward is 25 Bitcoins, worth around 12,500. These prizes provide a strong incentive for more people to join in Bitcoin's transaction clearing process, helping the currency to remain decentralized. The reward declines on a fixed schedule. Every 4 years, the reward falls by half. So from 2009 to 2012, it was 50 Bitcoins. Now it's 25, and starting in late 2016, it will fall to 12.5 Bitcoins, and so forth. If you do the math, you'll find that there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins in circulation. Right now, there are almost 12 million Bitcoins in circulation, so the Bitcoin money supply will never be more than twice its current size. Number 6, isn't that a huge problem? I learned in economics class that deflation can cause economic problems. It's true that deflation has traditionally been associated with economic problems, but there's little reason to think this will be a problem for Bitcoin. That's because deflation is only a problem if it is what economists call a unit of account for a nation's economic system. Right now in the United States, salaries, mortgage payments, rents, and other long-term financial commitments are priced in US dollars. As a result, if the value of the dollar rises unexpectedly, these sticky prices can cause severe economic distortions. Unable to cut wages, employers have trouble making payrolls. Unable to renegotiate their debts, homeowners have trouble making their mortgage payments. Tenants get stuck with rents they can't afford. The result is a recession. Hardly anyone uses Bitcoin as a unit of account. You'd be insane to sign a contract promising to repay a loan of 100 Bitcoin in 10 years or to take a job where your salary was priced in Bitcoins. Even the Bitcoin Foundation, which pays its employees in Bitcoins, still sets its employees' salaries in dollars, converting employees' dollar-based salaries into corresponding numbers of Bitcoins on each payday. As a result, fluctuation in the value of Bitcoins don't cause the kinds of economic disruptions that fluctuations in the value of traditional currencies do. How do I get Bitcoins? One option is to mine them yourself, but that's not a good choice for beginners. For everyone else, your best bet is to purchase them with a conventional currency. Websites known as exchanges will let you trade Bitcoins for conventional currencies with other users. Even more convenient are companies like Coinbase, which will withdraw cash from your bank account and convert it to Bitcoins at the current exchange rate. A few Bitcoin ATMs are popping up, which will directly trade paper money for Bitcoins. Here's a video of someone using a Bitcoin ATM in Vancouver. We'll skip past that, but I'll leave a link to the article in the show notes, and you can watch that if you'd like. Number 8. Okay, I bought some Bitcoins. Now what? Next, you'll need a place to store them. Bitcoins are stored in wallets, which in this case are just files that contain encryption keys or secret codes that allow you to transfer your Bitcoins to other people. There are several options. One is to store them yourself using one of the Bitcoin programs available for Mac, PC, or Android. Another option is to entrust them to a third-party website known as an online wallet. A third option is what's known as paper wallet, where you print out your encryption keys and store them in a safe place, such as a safe deposit box. Each has risks. If you choose to store your Bitcoins yourself, then you could lose them to a hacker, a hard drive crash, or a lost mobile device. But if you choose to use a third party, you need to worry about that third party swindling you or becoming bankrupt. which has happened so in some famous cases over the years. The Bitcoin market is largely unregulated, so there are few legal protections if you happen to choose the wrong online wallet service. Paper wallets avoid the pitfalls of other methods, but they're tricky to set up correctly. And of course, you're out of luck if you lose the piece of paper, which has also happened famously in the past. Number 9. Okay, I have some Bitcoins and found a secure way to keep them. What do I do with them now? There are thousands of Bitcoin merchants online who will sell you everything from jewelry to electronics to illegal drugs. You can also spend Bitcoins in real life. To spend them in person, you need a Bitcoin mobile app. Generally, the store you're buying from will show you a QR code representing the Bitcoin transaction. You then scan the QR code with your phone and the mobile app will send the required number of Bitcoins to the store. Then you walk out the door with your purchases. Of course, right now, the options for face-to-face Bitcoin transactions are rather limited. Earlier this year, Kashmir Hill of Forbes lived on Bitcoin for a week. Because he lived in tech-savvy San Francisco, she was able to find enough Bitcoin accepting merchants to get by, but just barely. So Bitcoin is far from being a practical currency for day-to-day use. Well, that's certainly changed in the past 4 years. But I would say Bitcoin plays a larger part in more of a stock investment than anything, than an actual used currency, although it has that use as well. Number 10, should I buy Bitcoins? Probably not. They're well, $800 4 years ago when this article was written. Now it's over $4,000. So I think they probably weren't right about their prediction. But then again, you know, my thoughts on it. I've been a bit skeptical, as I am about most things, for a long time, and you know, that didn't work out. So they say probably not. There are 2 reasons you might want to buy Bitcoins: to purchase goods and services, or for speculation. Right now, Bitcoin isn't a very practical payment technology for ordinary users. The software is too complicated, and the risk of loss due to hackers, forgotten passwords, hard drive failures, and so forth are too large. Also, Bitcoin is extremely volatile right now, so your wallet could go from having $100 worth of Bitcoin coins one day to $50 next. And right now, as Hill discovered, the technology just isn't used widely enough to make it a useful option to have in your pocket or purse. For most people, conventional payment technologies like credit cards are going to be more convenient. What about speculating on Bitcoin? Once again, the currency probably isn't a good choice for ordinary users. The security and reliability risks of Bitcoin loom much larger if you invest thousands of dollars in the currency. You don't want to run the risk of losing thousands of dollars because you forgot a password or had an unexpected password failure. And the currency is extremely volatile. Might keep going up, but it also could lose 90% of its value next week. In other words, you should only jump on the bandwagon if you have a strong stomach. Number 11, if people shouldn't buy Bitcoins, what is all the fuss about? Once again, the analogy to the internet is instructive. Until the 1990s, the internet wasn't a practical technology for ordinary folks to use either. It used complicated text-based programs, and you had to be a computer expert to use it effectively. But it would have been foolish for an observer in 1990 to dismiss the internet as too nerdy for mainstream use. Over time, entrepreneurs took the basic infrastructure of the internet and built innovative and user-friendly online services such as Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Bitcoin boosters are betting the same will happen with Bitcoin. The raw Bitcoin network isn't very accessible, but startups like Coinbase and BitPay are slowly fixing that. Someday soon, someone may develop a Bitcoin killer app, a program that provides a financial service that has clear advantages over conventional banking. That might be an international money transfer network with lower fees, a practical system for online micropayments, or something else that no one has thought of before. Number 12, did Bitcoins ever replace conventional money? It's possible, but it doesn't seem very likely. People want to use currency that most other people use. In the United States, that's going to be the US dollars for the foreseeable future. And that's a good thing. If Bitcoin became the standard currency of the US economy, then its fixed money supply would create a serious risk of the next economic downturn snowballing into a depression. However, there could be a lot of room for Bitcoin to complement conventional financial networks. After all, PayPal gained traction because the conventional financial networks of the day weren't meeting all of the users' needs. Bitcoin's open architecture could allow it to become even more disruptive. People are unlikely to ever eschew conventional financial networks altogether, but there could be a substantial market for Bitcoin-based services that perform certain services more effectively or affordable than conventional alternatives. So, well, that gives a somewhat of an overview of it, and not necessarily the technology. It's based on the what's called the blockchain. And this blockchain technology, there's other digital currencies out there. And this is a very important technology that's important in a lot of areas of computing and financial digital currencies, and is going to be very important, more and more important. And I don't know how much of this could become the backbone of financial institutions, but we see how important PayPal has become. So let's go to the article in question that I began all of this with, now that we have the overview, and we'll talk about how this 18-year-old says that he thinks the Bitcoins that are 4,000 now could go to 10,000 soon. This next story is from Tech Insider. This 18-year-old digital currency millionaire thinks Bitcoin could hit 10,000 a coin. Eric Finman may be only 18, but he's a millionaire, thanks to a very shrewd and early investment in Bitcoin. And despite the recent tumult in the world of digital currency and huge run-up in the value of Bitcoin, Finman is still a Bitcoin believer. By his reckoning, the cyber currency still has a ton of upside. Indeed, Finman said recently that buying Bitcoin now would be a very smart financial decision. The teen mogul is putting money where his mouth is. He owns 403 Bitcoins, which give him a net worth of around 1.7 million. He's not going to college and he doesn't have a steady job. He's just focusing on his Bitcoin investments. Well, that and launching a satellite stocked with a signed Taylor Swift CD into low Earth orbit. Is something about a fool and his money are soon parted. I don't know. Something comes to mind with that, but he's young. His faith in Bitcoin hasn't been shaken by recent investments such as the explosive growth of Ethereum, a rival digital currency system, the hard fork to Bitcoin that divided the market for currency, or the big rise in the value of Bitcoin. Each coin is now worth more than $4,300, up from less than $1,000 each as recently as March. While there will be some ups and downs to Bitcoin in the near future, Finman expects that it could go up much, much more, possibly to as high as 10,000 per coin. The alternatives. Finman doesn't pay much mind to cyber currency alternatives like Bitcoin Cash, a currency that spun off from Bitcoin following a schism within the Bitcoin community. Recently, there was a split as of August 1st in Bitcoin, and now there's Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Anyway, we'll go over that some other time. Finman sees it as an altcoin, an offshoot that's more of a minor experiment than a true successor to Bitcoin itself. Finman's also skeptical about Ethereum, which has been getting a lot of traction in Silicon Valley. Each Ethereum's name for its digital coins is now worth $300, and proponents see unlimited upside. Ethereum has some more advanced technologies to it that might make it a real force in this environment of digital currency. But Finman believes that growth in Ethereum is being driven largely by speculators who are creating a bubble that could burst one day. In the Bitcoin community, Ethereum is sometimes known as Ponzi coin, he said, a characterization that he might agree with. There's a lot of money short term to be made with Ethereum, he says, but he's unconvinced of its long-term viability as a true digital currency. He feels similarly about initial coin offerings, or ICOs, where companies are launching new currencies or digital tokens by exchanging them for Bitcoin or Ether. He thinks ICOs are cool and innovative in theory, but describes much of the execution as Gordon Gekko-esque, referencing the unethically greedy anti-hero from Wall Street movies, insofar as they are largely unregulated and highly risky for investors. Well, that is true about Bitcoin as well. So that brings us to our video of the day. Let's take a look at this. We are going to, it's a 3-minute video, and fellow here is going to tell us a little more about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, new highs for everyone's favorite cryptocurrency this week, and also some big news. We'll get to that in a minute. First, let me give you a review of our take on Bitcoin. We talked about in a previous segment how this is the perfect asset for a speculative bubble. What does that mean? Well, there is a good story around it. There's a limited supply. There is no intrinsic value. Nobody can say what Bitcoin is actually worth at any given time. And there is some utility to it, and the use of it continues to increase. So you put all that together, you have this marvelous asset for a speculative bubble. We've said in the past that Bitcoin could go to $1 million, and it could. There's really nothing preventing that. Or it could go to $1, so you could use everything. And some speculators look at that equation and they say, hey, you know, if things go really well, I could get 10x, 100x, 1000x my money, and all I can lose, meanwhile, is everything. So I'll take that trade. And that's perfectly fine speculative logic, as long as you are willing to lose everything. And I think anybody investing in Bitcoin has to be willing to do that, or they are deluding themselves. So what happened this week? Bitcoin forked. What does that mean? Bitcoin, oddly, is run by a community of people, and they decided that they wanted to change the underlying structure, and there was a big argument about whether they should do that for main Bitcoin, whether they should create a new currency. Ultimately, the folks who wanted to create a new currency won, and something called Bitcoin Cash was created. What is Bitcoin Cash? It's basically just another cryptocurrency. It has the same basic kind of structure as Bitcoin, and it shares the name, but now it's a separate currency. If you owned some Bitcoin, you got some Bitcoin Cash. Effectively, the supply of the two currencies has been increased. Now the question is, what happens to the value? So far, things are looking good. Bitcoin has continued to move higher since the fork, and Bitcoin Cash, although it started out as a very high price, the price has come down, but has not completely collapsed. So folks who own Bitcoin doing very well. But this is the sort of thing that if you do believe in the future of Bitcoin, you have to watch. Now that Bitcoin Cash is out there, the question is it going to be adopted, or are people going to start to use it? We think that the most important fundamental chart that you should follow tracking Bitcoin is the actual transactions every day. And over time, that's been increasing, which is good news long-term fundamentally for the currency. But now the question is anybody going to use Bitcoin Cash, or is it just going to be a speculative plaything? Doesn't have to succeed, could go to zero, wouldn't hurt Bitcoin if that happened, but now effectively we have two cryptocurrencies to go with the other passel of cryptocurrencies out there. Unless Bitcoin Cash actually becomes useful in terms of people using it to exchange value back and forth or buy things with it, it will just be a purely speculative plaything, so watch out for that as well. But at this point, Bitcoin still on a tear. Will there be new highs in the future? We'll keep watching.
Well, this next story is from Mashable. Elon Musk and 115 other experts asked the UN to ban killer robots in open letter. Elon Musk, Google DeepMind co-founder Mustafa Suleyman, and 114 other leading AI and robotics experts have joined together to ask the UN to ban the use of so-called killer robots in an open letter published today. The group is concerned about the potential use of lethal autonomous weapons and how they might be applied in the future, and they penned a short note released by the Future of Life Institute. The text was made public to kick off the opening of the International Joint Conference on Artificial Intelligence in Melbourne, Australia, according to a press release. Lethal autonomous weapons refer to drones, autonomous machine guns, tanks, and other forms of weaponry controlled by AI on next-generation battlefields. Musk, for one, is famously wary of AI's potential to go bad, recently calling it the greatest threat we face as a civilization, above even nuclear weapons. But the open letter is the first time a group of AI and robotics companies have joined forces to petition the UN specifically about autonomous weapons, according to the release. Well, I think that'll probably have about as much effect as the letter written try to prevent the development of the hydrogen bomb by scientists. I think that countries are going to use the technology to develop drones and so forth as autonomous killing machines. It's inevitable. We need to do it, get ahead of the game, of course, because secretly they're going to be doing it, even if the countries claim to be abiding by some treaty that we're to come up with, just like there was for the nuclear ban treaties and so forth. But look at Korea, look at the countries, just like they say, criminals are going to get weapons. It's law-abiding people that aren't going to get them. Well, countries that want to obey such treaties will, but then those aren't the ones we're worried about. So anyway, but it's nice that they're thinking ahead, because this technology is definitely already being developed, already in use. In fact, of course, with drones that we're using in Afghanistan and so forth. Okay, so let's go on. The UN's review conference of the Convention on Conventional Weapons had unanimously agreed to start formal discussions on the prohibition of autonomous weapons, and 19 of the member countries have already supported banning the killer robots outright. The group was slated to meet on August 21st, but has been delayed until November, according to Fortune. The open letter, which was signed by representatives from companies worth collectively billions of dollars across 26 countries, could put even more pressure to make prohibition happen. The actual text of the letter is short and stark. You can read it here, but we've included the most essential passage below. Lethal autonomous weapons threaten to become the third revolution in warfare. Once developed, they will permit armed conflict to be fought at a scale greater than ever, and at timescales faster than humans can comprehend. These can be weapons of terror, weapons that despots and terrorists use against innocent populations, and weapons hacked to behave in undesirable ways. We do not have long to act. Once this Pandora's box is open, it will be hard to close. I don't think it's already open. Co-signer Joshua Bengio, a deep learning expert who founded Element AI, is concerned about more than just the immediate damage lethal autonomous weapons might cause. He cited the potential to hurt the further development of AI's good applications by focusing on warfare and the inevitable backlash against the technology as a major reason for his participation in the effort. The Future of Life Institute published a similar letter in 2015, which was signed by Musk, Stephen Hawking, and others, with the message warning against the broader dangers of AI, not just those created for warfare. The danger posed by non-military AI is much less pressing, which makes some of Musk's statements feel overblown and ridiculous, and his self-important spat with Mark Zuckerberg more of a media spectacle than a debate with real stakes. But the potential for autonomous weapons to do damage, as the open letter states, is here now. Hopefully the UN listens to the experts. Well, I don't know about that last paragraph, but well, I suppose if your major corporations agreed to not develop such things. It could slow down the development of these technologies. But of course, military companies are already developing autonomous drones, weapons, and of course we have cartels that are using drones to deliver drugs across borders. These uses, whether they like it or not, are going to increase. We have to be thinking defensively and how to defeat these bots and technologies. It's like antiviruses and other security measures on computers and the internet. We're going to have to think defensively in the physical world against artificial intelligence driven bots and drones and vehicles that are used for military purposes or terrorist purposes. So let's go on to our next story. Well, hello again, my technology friends. Remember, we are here 24/7 updating articles for you about technology from across the web. So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/computer magazine. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/computermagazine.com. Join the Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/computer magazine, MAGAZI. And all our other social locations. They're in the show notes. Remember also to send me your picture or your video link or your question to editor@computermagazine.com. Call in live, call in and leave a message. If not live, not during the show, at 408-337-2775. And if you leave a message and have a question or a comment, it may get included in the next show, in the next digital mashup. So make sure to follow us everywhere and keep looking at computermagazine.com. Keep going back. It is your index for technology news on the web. And remember, it's updated every hour. We have all of our contributors from sources from all kinds of technology sources, and then of course our own columnists and articles. So we try to cover the full range of technology news that's available out there, so you have just one place to go, and that's computermagazine.com. Well, let's get back to our next story. So our next story is from TechCrunch. Google needs to pay Apple a small fortune to remain the default search engine on iOS. As CNBC first reported, according to a Bernstein analyst, Google could pay as much as $3 billion a year just to remain the default option in Safari. Business Insider also obtained that Bernstein report and shared the thinking behind this number. Bernstein analyst Tony Sacconaghi starts from a previous court document from 2014 that stated that Google had to pay $1 billion every year to remain the default search engine on iOS back in 2014. Wow. But mobile traffic as well as iPhone sales have been growing steadily since then. If you look at Apple's services revenue, and in particular licensing revenue, as well as Google's traffic acquisition costs, that number could be around $3 billion right now. It shows that Google is still highly dependent from Apple. The vast majority of Google's revenue comes from ads on search result pages, and Apple controls roughly 18% of the smartphone market. As most users update to the latest version of iOS in just a few months, it doesn't take long to change the default setting on hundreds of millions of iPhones. Google has no choice but to spend a ton of money to acquire this traffic. A few years ago, the iPhone shipped with a built-in YouTube app and Google Maps. When Apple realized that Google was becoming a serious competitor with Android, the company removed the YouTube app from iOS and worked on Apple Maps. Apple isn't afraid of saying no to Google when it comes to iOS features. Apple could probably not get as much money from Microsoft Bing, Yahoo Search, or DuckDuckGo, but Apple doesn't really need it anyway. It brings more than $45 billion in revenue per quarter now. It's all about hurting Google's bottom line. As John Gruber noted, Apple is in a strong position in this negotiation. While it's true that DuckDuckGo and Bing have gotten better over the years, it still lags behind when you're using those search engines in non-English languages. This incongruous situation is a great example of asynchronous competition. Apple and Google keep innovating and competing as hard as they can on the smartphone front, but they also partner on other aspects and even pay each other. Business schools will turn this situation into a great case study. Well, Apple is playing its same game of trying to have full vertical monopoly, but then again, Google is playing its games too, so it's just astounding, the dollar figures that are involved, though. Just billions and billions, just crazy. Okay, let's go on to our next story. Well, that actually brings us to our picture of the day. And this was sent in by a viewer. The cartoon, in case you're just listening and can't see it, the lady in a hospital bed with a baby in her arms. Apparently she just had a baby and a doctor's talking to her, and she says to the doctor, "I think I'll name her Sarah." And the doctor says, "I'm sorry, but that name is already taken. However, you can still have Sarah 343 or Sarah _12. So, yeah, that'll be a pretty sad day when it gets to that point, when we can't even have our kids named. But then again, that's why we have social security numbers, so we can, that is the unique identifier in a database setting. So therefore you can have whatever name you want. Unfortunately, not true with so many services out there. So let's go on to the next story. Oh, and keep it up, by the way. Send in your pictures, links. editor@computermagazine.com. Now let's go on to the next story. So you might be aware of the shakeup recently at Uber, where the CEO left in June, and now they're looking for a replacement. So Tech Insider brings us this next article. Former GE CEO Jeffrey Immelt reportedly tops the list to replace Travis Kalanick as Uber CEO. Jeffrey Immelt, the former CEO of GE, is now top candidate to become the new CEO of Uber, Recode reported on Saturday, citing numerous unnamed sources. A majority of the board of the app-based taxi company is leaning towards Immelt, but two other candidates are still in the running, Recode reported. The board expects to vote on a new CEO within the next 2 weeks, according to the online news outlet. "We know it's never going to be a perfect choice, but everyone is becoming exhausted," an unnamed source told Recode, adding, "We need someone with skills to move us along." Uber has effectively been headless since Kalanick resigned in June. In addition to Kalanick, the company has lost multiple executives this year and has numerous holes in its executive team, including for chief financial and operating officers. The company has experienced a string of controversies and scandals since the beginning of the year, but the most crucial was triggered by an investigation into sexual harassment at the company and Uber's overall workplace culture that was spurred by allegations from a former female engineer. In the wake of that investigation, which found evidence of numerous incidents of harassment, Uber fired more than 20 employees, and a group of Uber investors forced Kalanick to resign. Uber's CEO search has since become the source of yet another series of controversies. Benchmark Capital, an early investor in the taxi company, has sued Kalanick, charging that he has impeded the search for a new CEO and is scheming to get himself reappointed to the position. Other Uber investors have been harshly critical of Benchmark for its suit, and Kalanick is trying to get the case dismissed and sent to arbitration. Immelt resigned his position as CEO of GE on August 1st. He remains the conglomerate's chairman. Well, that's a pretty good sign that he resigned his position as CEO anyway of GE, so he must know something. Investors and employees criticize Immelt's tenure as the company's CEO. GE stock was trading at a lower level when he stepped down than it was when he took over in 2001. And he may have another knock on him. He's not a woman. In the wake of the sexual harassment complaints, many inside and outside Uber have been urging the company to appoint a woman to its top role. However, that may not be too much of a hindrance for Immelt. According to Recode and the Washington Post, none of the three remaining candidates for Uber's CEO position is female. So, yeah, there's been quite a shakeup at Uber. A lot of controversies and clearly some leadership issues. But then again, it's a growing company, and You know, I mean, Uber has been a phenomenon, hasn't it, over the past few years anyway. So you might expect those kind of growing pains. So now remember, the links are below in the notes, and you can read the full story and additional information that's at Recode if you follow the link. This article was from Tech Insider, but they're themselves quoting Recode, so just follow it along and you will find more information about the whole thing if you don't already know. Okay, so let's move along. Well, my friends, that is all for today. August 20th, 2017. You know what? I really appreciate you joining me here to go over a video wrap-up of the technology news that happened this week, or at least the highlights of some of it. Definitely can't cover all of it. Thousands of articles on computermagazine.com, updated hourly. We've got 100 sources probably, in addition to our own articles, our own columnists, reporters. But check it out, you know, read the rest, follow the links, read through all the other articles and resources we have. But at least you join me for some of the highlights, and we'll do this every week, the digital mashup. So join me next time. And remember, in the meantime, go to facebook.com/groups/computer magazine and join the group. Or follow us anywhere else we are on all our other social links, but make sure to view computermagazine.com. Tell your friends, family, coworkers, and everybody else. And the YouTube channel. Of course, this YouTube channel, youtube.com/computer magazine. Unless you're seeing it on one of our other video sources. Of course, we're on Vimeo and Dailymotion and VidMe and many other places. But subscribe to the YouTube channel at the very least, youtube.com/computer magazine. And again, thanks for coming. And join me next time, okay? For now, I'm Chris Swearingin. And this is Computer Magazine.